Hello, everybody. Today, we're going to be going over how to choose a carbon racing shoe for your upcoming half or full marathon. This is a question that I need to answer for myself, and these are the four shoes that are being considered under my consideration right now. The first being the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3 Low, also known as the Mizuno Lowboy. The next consideration from the fan favorite ASICS is the Edge Tokyo, Metaspeed Edge Tokyo. And these two weird looking shoes that some of you may or may not have seen featured on this channel are the Dynafish Denian 1 from the nation known as China and the Douyin PB Pro. Okay, so these are the shoes that I have laid out here for me. I've tried a few other carbon shoes. I've raced in a couple other carbon shoes and been through this decision process before, mostly evaluating from shoes that I didn't previously own leading into the marathon. And so I have a little bit of experience trying to choose from an open market, as many of you have. And now I'm choosing from a library of shoes that I already know and have run in. And so I'm going to give a little bit of the criteria for what's going into my thought process for the shoes that I've run in, as well as giving advice for those of you who are looking to maybe purchase your first carbon shoe or have owned carbon shoes in the past and know sort of what you like, but want to know what things are similar on the market and sort of how to look for them. So diving right into it, I'm going to mention a few properties of these shoes and sort of go from there. So, Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3 Low, Mizuno Lowboy. This is potentially the bounciest shoe that I've ever run in. It's even bouncier than the Hoka Cielo X1. The OG, I haven't run in the version 2 of that. Has PIBA midsole, carbon plate, or carbon-infused TPU plate, I think. But it is rigid like a carbon plate and very lightweight. This is definitely the heaviest shoe out of all of these gathered here today, but it is also the bounciest. Has a full coverage outsole, and that's going to be extremely durable in the years to come. I do think this is going to last a long time. And my consideration for this shoe is primarily the fun factor and the bounce. It is not necessarily a leading contender for this upcoming race, partially because of how unstable the bounce can be from it. But in order to really know, I need to get at least one more run in that to fully eliminate it from contention. Isn't that right, Hawk? So bounce is obviously something that people really enjoy, and a really bouncy shoe can feel like it's a cheat code, sort of giving you that bounce that you are looking at your watch and it's 15 seconds faster than you ever thought it could be. That's the Mizuno Lowboy, and that's why I'm considering that as an option for my upcoming marathon. The next one is the ASICS Metaspeed Edge Tokyo. It is very familiar to me. It's very similar to the Edge Paris in terms of its geometry, underfoot feel, lacing system, upper, all super, super similar to the last version with, in my opinion, an improved forefoot and really great feel overall. It's in this quadrant right here, the safety option for me. And it is also extremely bouncy. It might be, tied for second place in terms of bounciness. And I'll get to that in a moment. But why would I choose something like the Edge Tokyo? I know it really well. It's predictable. Why wouldn't I choose the Edge Tokyo? That's a really good question. It's currently probably the leading contender, with a couple caveats that I'll come to right now, actually, because I had one of the best runs, if not the best run of my life in the Dynafish Denian 1. It is a stellar shoe, and it's 150 grams, so it's lighter than the Edge Tokyo, and it felt just incredible to run in. And so I need to get more miles on it to know, if it's going to unseat the Edge Tokyo. That's the one that's the top contender to unseat the Edge Tokyo. And same with the Douyin PB Pro. I just had a run this weekend. That was actually my fastest long run pace ever for anything over 18 miles. And I was overjoyed with it. It is probably the least bouncy, definitely the least bouncy out of the group, and apparently the lowest stack as well, though I doubt the accuracy of the claimed measurement for the stack height. I think that these Chinese companies don't include the insole in their stack measurement. So with the insole, I believe this would be up to a full 40. But without it, it's something like 29, which is what they're claiming that it is. So it wouldn't be up to the full 40 even with insole, but I do have some doubts about it. It looks pretty much full stack. If you compare, maybe not. Maybe it does look a little bit lower than the Edge, but it does not feel it underfoot. This has the benefit of it feels like a relatively normal shoe, despite the fact that it is a 150 gram hyper shoe that has an uncompressed aliphatic TPU midsole. It's like the freshest of the fresh tech-wise, and it feels sort of like a shoe that you would run in. It feels very, very normal. Even the Dynafish feels a little more extreme, not so much in its bounce or in its weight or anything really, but it feels like you get this flinging sensation with the plate up extending past the tip of the forefoot, and the foam feels great, and it has the benefit of having a 3/4 inch or a 3/4 length plate that gives a lot more flexibility at the heel. Like you could flex your heel, which makes it so you don't have heel slipping in a shoe. So those are some of the things that I'm currently kicking around in my brain for consideration. So like pros and cons of each. Bounciest for sure, but also potentially a little unstable and a wild card. I need to get more miles on it to trust it, right? It's building a relationship with the shoe, trusting it before your marathon. That's key for anybody watching this. If you are planning to run a race in a carbon-plated shoe, you need to get at least one 20-mile effort in on it. That's my rule. I know a lot of people follow this rule as well. It is so important that you establish a relationship with the shoe, because the last thing you want is like some, heel chafing or arch pain or whatever, a big toe bleeding when you're 20 miles into the 26.2. It would be a disaster. And so that's why that's the downside of the low boy, is that I don't have full trust in it yet, which is the exact reason that the Edge Tokyo is the top contender for my race shoe. I have the most trust in that shoe, having ran in the Edge Paris for my last race and loving that shoe as a whole. The dark horse in this race is the Dynafish Denian 1. It is just an incredible underfoot feel. I had such an amazing run in it. It feels extremely light on foot, and I loved it a ton. It's going to come down to I need to get a couple more runs in to make sure I trust it. The grip on this was also fantastic, and the grip on both of these shoes is fantastic. And I think that you could see a pattern emerging that these are probably my two top choices for the race. But this doesn't discount either of these all the way either, because I just had one of the best runs of my life, one of the most quick runs of my life at that distance in this. So if I was really chasing a PB, so far this has been the most effective at delivering me that result. Now, could it be a confluence of the lowering temperatures, of just the day that I was running, the fact that I didn't film early on into my long run as much as I normally do with setting up shots? Yeah, that's all contributing factors to the success of that shoe, and that's why I'm not overweighting the most recent long run success. But yeah, it's about establishing trust as well in the shoe. Now, how would you come at this if you have never run in a carbon plated racing shoe before, or if you have run in some, but maybe not others. First, let's tackle the question of if you have run in a carbon-plated racing shoe before, what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? The way that I came to the decision to run in each of these shoes progressively came down to the first one I ever ran in, the Adios Pro 3. It was something that I tried on in a Fleet Feet after having tried on the Metaspeed Sky Paris and finding that the Metaspeed Sky Paris cut up my pinky toe on my left foot and didn't work for me. Trying on the Adios Pro 3, loving it in the store, getting it home, and finding the laces just tore into the top of my foot and caused me a lot of pain, a lot of lace bite. I spent a long time dialing in the fit of that shoe, and eventually I got it to work. That was a lot of effort, but then I understood what I loved in a shoe. I understood that I valued a secure fitting upper that doesn't cause me pain. I valued directional bounce, and the Adios Pro 3 has some of that most incredible underfoot experience that I had at the time, for sure. I also value a relatively low drop, something that's not going to be super jarring, like climbing over a big heel in a shoe to get to the forefoot. And I also like a forefoot rocker in the style that's in the Adios Pro 3, very late stage rocker, which you'll notice in the edge is not as pronounced. So you'll see that both of them have a pretty late stage rocker coming up to even like the pinky toe here, as opposed to the Evo SL, which has this more gradual sloping rocker to it. This is much more angled up and steep, and the Edge Paris is definitely a more gradual or less extremely vertical, at least, rocker than the Adios Pro 3, but they're late stage. They don't start extremely early, and so it rewards a more falling forward waterfall versus like a rolling forward through your stride type of rocker. That is one of the things that you could look at when deciding on a shoe for race day based on previous shoes that you run in, that you have run in, not even just based on previous carbon shoes that you've run in. The foam is another one, the type of foam feel that you like, whether it's firm or soft, whether it's a really energetic foam or something that's a little bit more stable. You'll notice with these three shoes, the Adios Pro 3 has one of the firmest racing foams out there. It's very dense, very rubber ball feeling. The Edge Paris is firm, not so much a rubber ball feeling firm, but firm PIBA. And that is really direct when you land on it and gives you very little sink in to the forefoot. And that's something that I find really, it works extremely well for me, especially in a racing shoe. The evolution in the Tokyo, changing up the foam, this is softer for sure, but it's not by any stretch of the imagination something like the Rocket X3, which has this really very soft PIBA in the forefoot. Something like that would be too compressive for me and is very likely to give me plate feel. Whereas these are much more resistant to compression, and it takes more force to compress them, right? So another thing that along those lines is important to keep in mind when you're choosing your next racing shoe is how the plate is positioned within the shoe. So you'll see with the Adios Pro 3, there are rods in here. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on camera, but you could even see like rod lines along the midsole from where the compression over some almost 500 miles probably has occurred. And that indicates to me that the fact that there are lines down here, as well as where you're seeing the rods come into the foam, let's see if we could get it in profile. Like, it's somewhat in the middle of the foam towards the bottom. It's right where this line splits it. So I wasn't getting rod feel on these at all. I like, personally, a scooped plate. And I know that there's some discussion about how a scooped plate is less likely to be propulsive, but it is more likely to not interfere with your natural stride, in the sense of some people find these scooped plates more forgiving, and the plates that are really close to the forefoot and up to the foot in general are, yes, going to give a more propulsive, overall, more energetic ride, but they could hurt to run in, theoretically. And I'm one of the people that does experience pain when I compress the plate too much, especially when it's up close to the forefoot. And it could just be down to, I think for me, running style. If I'm running on my forefoot with each stride, and I consistently do that over and over, and there's only a thin layer of foam between me and a plate, that might be just me compressing the foam all the way and feeling the plate underneath my forefoot, right? There's any number of reasons that you might be able to feel it, and different people are going to have different preferences on that. So you need to figure out, if you've run in a carbon plated shoe before, that's a consideration. Do you like a scooped plate, or do you like a flatter plate closer to the forefoot? Something that you might need to play around with. And you can, if you have the option to go to a running store near you, go in and grab a pair of Edge and Sky Tokyos from the shelf and go do a few strides, run on a treadmill in both of those shoes. And that's a really good way to get a feel for what plate position you like, whether or not you like Asics shoes or this particular set of Asics shoes. They're pretty much identical besides the plate position and the foam position. It would have been a better test to do it in the Edge Paris and Sky Paris, because the only thing different about those two shoes was the plate position. Now with the Edge and Sky Tokyo, the foams are also swapped, so it might be not quite as informative. But if you went into a store and you could try on Edge and Sky Tokyo or Edge and Sky Paris instead, you would be in a really good position to know what plate position you would want to run in across many brands. Because I think that if you could feel the plate in the Sky Paris under your foot and you don't like the sensation, then that might be informative if you are looking at other carbon-plated racing shoes when you're looking at their plate positions. Now, as far as upper is concerned, that's one of those things that you're really going to have to try on in a store to figure out what you like. You could look at the mesh and try to understand what it looks like. You could see if there's any like weird toe cap stuff going on. I know in both of these shoes, I have to wear a specific type of sock, whereas in the Dynafish Dinian 1, I didn't. And actually the same is true of all of the other shoes that I'm considering running my race in. None of these gave me any upper issues, and I wore Injinjis in all of these shoes as my test, because those are my everyday socks. I have the most of those socks. I have like something like 20 pairs of Injinjis. And that's what tends to work for me. That does not work for me in these and these. So upper, it's just going to take some work to find the upper that works for you. And you would likely need to try it on. Now, if you don't have the option to try it on and you're one of the people that doesn't typically have upper issues, you're probably not going to have upper issues in a racing shoe, but it is something to note to try on instead of relying on just testimonials from other people, because you have your own foot. You are the person that knows your foot the best. and what it likes, and you just gotta see for yourself. The last thing is drop. What drop works for you, you'll know based on the daily trainers you tend to run in. Find the drop of the daily trainer that you run in. Hawk, you're annoying. Did you hate it? Find the geometry of the daily trainer you run in. Something like the Adios 9 is very flat. The Adios 9 is going to look a little bit like the Doan PB Pro in terms of rocker, and it's going to also look a little bit like the Edge Tokyo. It's much less pronounced, much less extreme rocker, and that tends to work for me in my daily shoes, and there's no reason that that wouldn't also work for me in my racing shoes. And the real important thing here is not so much for me, this could be different for everybody, it's not so much the severity or amount of the rocker, but it's where it starts. And I don't personally want it to start very far back in the shoe, because that leaves me feeling sometimes as if I don't have enough of a platform to calf flexion on. If it starts later, I have already landed and started to press off of the shoe, sort of around where this is. Like, that's where my pinky toe is going to end up. And if I'm already super deep into the rocker, then I might feel like I'm not pushing, I don't have enough to push off of the shoe. And there's really only, this is the shoe overload right now, but there's really only one shoe that I own currently that I've had an issue with that, and it's the Evo SL. It's that my pinky is coming to about there on the Evo SL, and the rocker starts, even like, it might not look like it on camera, but it starts like right there. So it's extremely far back. And yeah, just knowing the shoes that have worked for you, or at least what parts of the shoes that work for you work and why they work, will inform your choice when it comes to a carbon-plated racing shoe. So to wrap it up, things to consider when choosing your next racing shoe: reliability, trustworthiness, so building a rapport with the shoe, understanding it, understanding how it works with your foot. I think for me, is going to be the absolute number one goal when it comes to choosing from these four here, is which one I could connect with the most and understand the most. That's the one I'm ultimately going to pick for race day. And you would think, right, that would be the Metaspeed Edge Tokyo, because I have so much experience running in the Metaspeed Edge Paris, this naming convention, I swear to God. So yes, trustworthiness, comfort is another one. I was probably, out of all of these, the most comfortable in the Dynafish Denian one. That has to do with this really plush heel collar, the underfoot feel in general, and also how long the toe box was compared to my foot. And it's almost like I went up half a size without going up half a size, just because of the way they make this shoe. Their size 43 is actually converts to a size 10 US, but the usable platform of the foot, as far as shape is concerned, my feet are only coming up to about here, but that's right before it narrows. So there's something they're doing with shape, and I guess like geometry, but not rocker geometry, just geometry of the last in the shoe construction in general, that really worked for my foot in this. So comfort, trustworthiness, speed, right? That's something that you want in a race shoe. And excitement. You want to feel powerful and fast on race day. You want to be overjoyed with the idea of running in the shoe, and you want to feel like you're cheating on race day. And that's what the Mizuno Lowboy does the best out of all of these. It's just like honestly, it feels like you shouldn't be allowed to wear that shoe. And in part, you really shouldn't be allowed to wear that shoe because they're doing even though this isn't the most pronounced Wave Rebellion Pro 3, the Wave Rebellion Pro 3 low still has a bit of this like cheat code heel World Athletics thing going on. And that's taller than 40, even though it's only measuring at 40 in the heel. So that's why that's so exciting. It's also PIBA and a really like soft and bouncy PIBA. So being excited about race day, trusting the shoes that you're going to run in, having a fast result, and being comfortable throughout. Those are the factors that I'm going to use when choosing a carbon-plated racing shoe. Apply that same logic to your daily trainers if you've never run in a carbon-plated racing shoe, and then apply that logic if you have run in a carbon-plated racing shoe. Apply it to what you see on the market and what other reviewers or myself have compared these shoes to and the sensations that they bring. And you should be able to synthesize some information and make an informed decision on buying your next carbon-plated racing shoe. Thank you all for your attention and stay in motion.